Hey, everybody. Welcome to MSP Unplugged. I am your host, Paco Lebron. This is the place to learn how to run your IT business, whether you are a one-person shop or leading a team for the journey. This is the place for you. Let me go ahead and introduce my co-host. I have none other than my partner in crime, who has been here for quite a bit of the time for this journey. We have none other than Mr. Rick Smith over at Renactus Technology. Rick, how are you, my friend?
Doing good, doing good. A little under the weather today, but I'm gonna hang in and get this done.
Oh man, that's been going around lately, as it seems, and I don't wish that on anybody else because I got sick right after I got married too. So literally the day after. So, and it wasn't because of the wedding. But anyway, we're gonna go ahead and move forward. We want to go ahead and introduce again our newest co-host to the MSP Unplugged podcast. We have Corey Kirkendoll over at 5K Technical Services. Corey, how are you, my friend?
Hey, brothers, I'm good, man. Good to be here, man. And I want you guys to keep that sickness away from down here in Texas. But I'm glad y'all on the rebound, man. That stuff will get you down, but I got you. We'll hold it down for you for sure.
Yep. No, it's yeah, it's been interesting. This weather change has been causing some problems lately, I think, for a lot of everybody. So but the show must go on. It's been a little bit since we've been on the horn here. So why don't we go ahead and dive into kind of what's been happening the last couple weeks and what's going on in your world. Corey, I'll start with you. What's been happening in your world last couple weeks and where are you at right now?
Yeah, man. So for me, man, at the end of the year, it's always project, man. For somewhere, somehow, man, the customers have found this bucket of money that they've been holding on to that they didn't know they had, and they're ready to spend. And so we've been helping them prioritize and get those projects on tap to at least get them paid up and on stack to be ready to go out, first and second quarters of next year. And then just going over where everybody is always like to spend a lot of time making sure we got the right people in the right seats on the bus, making sure everybody's still good, make sure we're going down from a training perspective, and just kind of having those one-on-ones, and just making sure that we're staying in line with each other and where we're going as a company. So there's been a lot of time with my peeps and just making sure everybody's still good, turning out the year good. I got a couple guys. I got a guy on my team is getting married. And, I got some people who want to take some time off. I want to make sure that we're able to accommodate and continue to do those things, recharge them batteries.
I hear that. Yeah, yeah. Burnout and trying to make the best for your employees is highly important. And they always say that you should really focus on your employees' experience because then that trickles down to the customer experience, right? And being able to really focus and driving the mission of what the business does. So that's actually awesome. Um, Mr. Smith, what's going on in your world these days?
Well, other than being sick, I just just trying to get through it. As we talk about this fourth quarter, just trying to get through. I am winding down, as we get to the fourth quarter this year. We made a serious sacrifice. And just really in time, not in business, but in time of really trying to right the ship and get organized. And I've talked about this several times, just about the documentation portion of this and getting processes and procedures in place. So we are at that point. I did something that I don't normally do, that I haven't done in years, other than little skirts, but I did take a vacation, which was really good. And I'm gonna say, for all of us entrepreneurs out there who, and I know we have to work hard and we have to run the business and keep things going. But and I reluctantly went kicking and screaming, but I had a good time. It was actually good to relax and get away from everything for a little while. And you come back, you basically recharge your battery a little bit and come back and your mind is fresh. So I am definitely going to flip from how I used to be. And now that is going to be a part of my regimen every year, that I'm going to take at least 1 week away from the business and and take some me time. And I think for that'll work with the work we put in this year to get things organized. I don't have to feel like when I run away, or when I not run away, but when I leave, that the house is going to blow up, because everyone knows the role and everyone has policies and procedures to follow now. So we should be better. But that's what it is. And now I'm just trying to roll in and make 2025 a positive movement, a move in the right direction.
That's good to
But I
hear.
like
It's
that,
good
man.
to
I'm going to make sure that I hold you accountable to that, man. But I'm going to challenge you to do the same for me and Paco too.
Cool.
Oh
I
no,
definitely will. I definitely will.
I got
All
my
right.
vacations planned. So no, but so where'd you go to this nice week vacation that you went to?
I went to Chicago. Spent some time in Hawaii on the Big Island, which was awesome. And then I rounded that out with a nice weekend in Chicago at Paco's wedding, everyone. So yeah, and I didn't say this. We did we did allude to it, but hey, congratulations, Paco. Tied the knot, I guess now that's 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks. Yep.
Wow, 3 weeks ago. So yeah, big congratulations. You had a lovely wedding out in Chicago. And yeah, so that rounded out my my week. And then I got back, felt refreshed until I got sick this week, but we did good.
Good stuff.
Well, I was trying to allude to that it wasn't just a local vacation that you actually went and took the time out to actually leave. But yes, thank you for the kind words there. But yeah, I think we recorded after I had got married, or was it before?
Before.
Was it? It was before. Okay. Wow. So it's been 3 weeks. So yeah. So yeah, I got married to my lovely wife, who those who have not met her, she was our amazing event planner for TechCon Unplugged this year. As everyone knows, trying to find a good partner in just business, but also in life, is always important. So I'm glad to have been able to be blessed to be able to do that and share it with friends, to see that as well. But yeah, over the last 3 weeks have been very interesting. It was all about TechCon, right? For the month of like August and September for logistics and finality and things of that nature. Then once TechCon was over, then it was all about the wedding. And so coming back was a lot of catch up with the business. For those that don't know, we have transitioned our help desk this year. It was a big struggle for us, which caused a lot of a stagnant growth. We only closed, I think, about 2 clients this year, just because our house just was not in order. And so this happened back in 2021, I believe, 22, where like I ended sales for the same reason, where we just didn't have our SOPs and processes in place. Now, it's a whole new world, in the world of, having internal technicians, then now transitioning to an outsourced help desk. And so for a good 4 months, from April until probably about good August, was really how long it took to really get this done. And so 4 months may not sound like a big deal, but I'll tell you what, when you haven't done main support in 4 years and you're the one riding the ship for support now and you're trying to do all your leadership duties, I don't miss it one bit to be a one man MSP, because main reason why I hired people, because there are duties that I just did not want to do. And so, but it allowed me to also understand the efficiencies that we were losing. And so it's amazing on what was kind of the standard for us and how much time and resources were just going out the window, without really taking a step back and looking at it as a whole picture. So, thankfully, we got with helpdesk.tech. They've been amazing for the last couple months, killing it for our guys, for our clients, and they've been working really well. Have a couple people that took off of leave of absence, so they'll be returning here in November. And then we added a couple new members to the team to try to fill that role, but also really establish our actionable items for our marketing. So that's really what we've been preparing for. Really trying to dive into this fourth quarter living, as we talk about every year, and it's really allowing us for that. But really, for me, it's been catch up, trying to figure out things going on. I think for those that may not know, whether this is a tip or a story, where if you are on the action pack from Microsoft that is expiring, or they're no longer going to offer it as of, I believe, January 25th of 2025. So you got a couple months that if you're in that window to purchase it, you should, if you're going to do so. But in its place, they are swapping it out for their partner. What is it called? Partner success, I guess, is the key themes. And so it's like partner launch, partner success core, and then partner. I forgot what the third one, but there's essentially 3 levels now that you can purchase. I think some are more cost conscious for some of the smaller MSPs. But also it allows you to figure out what your next step is for. So um, something to keep in mind, along with, as everyone should know, this year or this month marks 1 year until Windows 10 is going to be end of life. So you should be having this conversation with your clients, should be pulling your hardware reports, see what's outdated, what can go to Windows 11, what can't. And for those that don't know, there should be a couple articles out there, but essentially Core 8, Intel, wait, no, not Core, Intel
8500
8500,
or above.
Intel, is it Core still? I can't remember. Or is it now called something else? It's called Ultra now, isn't it? For
I have
their
no idea. I
processor.
just know it
Yeah,
has
anyway.
to be 8500 or above.
So basically, unless you have an 8500 processor or above, you can't go to Windows 11. I mean, there is ways to get around it, but I've heard it doesn't provide a lot of stability and reliability doing it that way. This is a great conversation for you to start having that conversation. So 1 year from today, don't be surprised. Don't let your clients be surprised, and don't let OEMs start poking them on your behalf. Have your partnerships ready, and so you can go ahead and speak with them as well. So I think those are all kind of like the news things that I can think of. Anything else, Rick, that Corey, that we can think of news in the media right now? That
Yeah, I think one of the things is, everybody's seeing all these new AI PCs out there and what's going on from that perspective, right? So the challenge you also got to make sure as you go out there is, as you start looking at the Snapdragon and look at the different chip manufacturers, that most of the tools don't work on the Qualcomm chips, right? So most of your antivirus is not on there on the ARM processors. You need to make sure as your users do it and you're looking at it that you're staying into that Intel base or the AMD side, because if you do go to a Qualcomm based on ARM processor, I know for a fact things like Sentinel-1, Huntress, all the tools don't run on those. So you maybe have to look at it. So make sure you're doing some investigation to make sure that you're staying up to speed on that piece as well.
Yeah,
that's good to know.
Definitely important.
Yeah, because I know like all the new Surfaces, they're all now on the Snapdragon and Qualcomm processors. So I love my Surface Laptop 3. And so I wanted to go to that next level, but because of that reason, I've now switched over to the dark side of Dell. So I'm rocking a Dell Latitude on there. And so that's kind of what we've standardized on now. It's been kind of working out for us for what we have, especially with some of the automations. And so for some of our price conscious clients, we've figured out some good solutions that'll work out where we can standardize on that business class laptops / desktop situation versus having a consumer laptop from Costco. So
that just sucks though, man.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm a Surface fan. Like I love my Surface, and
I'm with you. Trust me, I'm with you. But
I think one of the other things that's big out there, I know it's been a lot of FUD over the last couple of years, was from a regulation perspective, a CMMC or no CMMC. Well, the rule is final now, right? And so there's no question about it. So at the end of the day, the rule is that if you're a service provider that supports a customer that has to meet a level 1 or level 2, then that you as MSP have to be at that level as well. So you're going to start to see that. So this is one of those things where we're starting to see regulation is going to force MSPs to start to get their house in order. So you need to really pay attention to your customers and really pay attention to that, because if you're supporting them, that is a requirement for you to be at least at the level or above of where they are, in order to continue to support them and make sure they stay compliant as well. So if you have a customer and you're not there, right? Have a customer that's not there, then you may want to make sure that could be not your customer soon. So really start to think about that.
So Corey, can you dive in a little bit more on CMMC? Because I think a lot of us always hear more about like NIST and CIS, and we've heard the phrase. We know it deals with government contracts or clients that have government work or things of that nature. But I don't think they understand the ramifications of kind of like with, for example, regulatory bodies like HIPAA or things like where it's like now you're a business advisor, so you're looped into that whole situation. Can you share a little bit more about like this regulatory compliance for CMMC?
Yeah, for sure. So back it started out a long time ago when the DoD came out. They used to do a thing called DFARS, and what that meant was that it was hard for a lot of the government agencies who did contracts with those guys to understand how to regulate. So if I made a bolt for scrutiny as the entire missile. And so I had to go through the same regulatory requirements, same everything that I needed to do. And what happened is it became very cost prohibitive. If I have a contract that I'm only making $200,000, but it takes me $250,000 to certify, then that's not a good business sense. I can't do it. But I would lose that contract because I wasn't. What happened is the DoD could never get DFARS really take up. They kept delaying it, kept delaying it, kept delaying it. So then they came out with this new thing called CMMC. And if you see it out there, it's the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. And over the last few years, they've been rewriting. There was CMC version 1, then there was 1.5, then there's 2, and then they finally have standard that says, hey, we're good. And now here's the framework. And what that is that's a model of how agencies that work with the DoD handle confidential or unconfidential classified information, and how you have to follow the through and how the rules. If you, it's even down to level, if I literally cut grass for someone who has a DoD contract and they have to be a minimum of a level 1, right? That means that, hey, I got to be able to handle that because I have an ability to either see, hear, or be around that type of information. And so you really want to start looking at it is that it's not a self-attestation. You cannot go and self-certify, so you can go and self-get ready, but you have to have a pool of a certified CMMC person to come in and to do things for you. So it's a great opportunity for, if you do have some clients in that regulated space, to do some contract work with someone who is CMMC certified, so you can help do the work to fill the gaps and fill the holes from that perspective, to get your client ready. But you need to start having those conversations, because at the end of the day, you say, what's that need? That means that my customer could lose a government contract that's really driving their business. At the end of the day, when they have to check that box, the people that you work with from a service provider, are they certified to the level that we need them? Then you would be that cog in the wheel that would help them not be certified, and you could lose the business. So really at the point now to really think about, one, who you can partner with to move that needle forward. And then 2, do I understand the true regulations of what my customer needs to be able to push that forward? And it really, and what we're seeing is, we believe that because the way CMMC came down and the scrutiny it went through and the levels it went through, DoD finally got something that you're going to start to see other organizations start to leverage the model, because it's going to become very mature very quickly, right?
Gotcha.
So yeah, for sure.
That's good info. Good info.
One other thing I wanted to, when we're talking about the government, this is not tech related, but it is business related. So all of us who do own our businesses, there's this form that's required to be filled out now. You guys heard of this BOI, the BOI report? Beneficial Ownership Information Reporting, I think it stands for.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like
essentially
if
all
you're a
businesses
corporation.
have to, say it again.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Essentially, yeah, all businesses have to fill this form out, basically certifying ownership of the company, who owns it. It's basically it's a government form, basically for money laundering, for them to help prevent money laundering and ownership and all this stuff. So I think it's for to prevent against foreign ownership. So if you have an LLC, a C corp, I think some S corps have to do it as well.
Yeah, we do. S corps have to do it.
Yeah, and it has to be done. I think January 1st is the deadline. If you started your company before January 1st of 2024, it has to be filled out before January 1st of 2025. I think if you started it during the year, you have like 30 days or 90 days to do it. But you do it at fincen.gov. That's FINCEN.gov. It takes like roughly like 5 to 10 minutes. It's not really a in-depth form. But apparently there's some hefty fines attached if you don't have it filled out. So they can hit you. So it's just another, so all you want to avoid the government's money grab. Let's get out there and get it.
Yeah, we'll make sure we put that in the show notes and everything else that we've talked about here today. And then the last thing is with TechCon Unplugged. I know we have some deliverables and collateral to send to everybody. There should have been a newsletter that went out that should have had a survey. Thank you for those that had filled it out. And then there was the link to the gallery as well. My understanding is that link did not work. So what we're going to do is, if you're in the Facebook community group, we're going to upload the gallery in there later today. And then I hear you clearly. The presentations also were in the newsletter, but I know you are looking for those sessions. So we are working on that right now. Just, life happens and the catching up, but we are working hard to provide we're not just trying to just come up with a place for the content. We're looking to create a new experience for everyone who is involved with MSP Unplugged, and you have one place to go for all of your things that you need, whether those are resources, whether those are the content that we have recorded. So we have them. We're getting that done for you all. We should have more word for you. Our hope is by the end of the year, but we will continue to keep you all up to date on that, but we will make sure to have that available to you all. We haven't forgot. We're just working through the motions as we kind of kick the can down the road as we get toward for all the new things that we have coming up for 2025. So just wanted to give that quick update for there. All right, gents. It's my favorite time of year, and that is Christmas. No, I'm kidding. No, really, what the big thing about this is, we started a series probably now. I think this is now our third year that we've done this, where it's called the fourth quarter living series. And so, for what that means is, or where that term has come from. For those that may not know, there is a gentleman named Eric Thompson who's known as the hip hop preacher. He is a very key motivational speaker in a lot of the arenas of Fortune 100 companies and things of that nature. And so there's a term that he uses for the last quarter of the year is fourth quarter living, meaning not only do you apply the fourth quarter of the year, but you should really be playing how your business is running like the fourth quarter of a basketball game or the fourth quarter of a football game. Being able to understand that winners win and losers lose, meaning that once the game is over, that's the finality of that game. And so that's the same way that you can treat that for the year of business. So in this year, 2024, is what are you going to do this next 3 months that will hopefully get you on the leaderboard and make sure that it preps you for the next game, aka the next year, right? And so me and Rick always talk about what we're doing. We open up the hood and trying to figure out what it is that we're trying to plan, what we're trying to do, things of that nature. Thus, us coming up with MSP Unplugged office hours. There will be one every month. Our hope is we will have one scheduled out this month on the Facebook community group. We'll have another one in December, and we're hoping to make this a regular cadence. But the point of the office hours is not just a topic that we're just going to talk about. It's literally something that we're working on in our businesses, and whoever's invited can go ahead and take a look and ask questions. We just had one a couple weeks ago, probably a month now, where we were working on Growably, and that's the CRM that me and Rick use. And we were literally opening the hood, showing how we're managing context. Rick is a little bit more involved in that product. And so he shows what he was doing, and it was a very good conversation. Think of it as kind of like a virtual meetup, essentially, on basis of this topic, right? And we're going to be ranging from a bunch of them. How are we configuring? I use Huntress as our Microsoft MDR. So how are we configuring these things and working with Huntress on best practices, and how are we doing those processes for ourselves? We may be speaking about, hey, how are we handling budgets and bringing in people like Tom Bull, things of that nature. Corey is a very big proponent for Octiga, and that is a tool that me and Rick just adopted. And what are the things that we can do with the tool, not only security wise, but also as a monetary wise, and really figuring out how do we leverage that as a form of business to help ourselves move forward and push that needle. So again, these are all things that we do during this time. But really, for the biggest piece is fourth quarter living, is what are we truly doing in the fourth quarter so that you as the audience can take something away from it and just maybe apply one, a few, or maybe everything to try and step up where you are, because you're looking to try and average or try to push the needle a little bit higher than where you are right now. So again, all opinions are our own. You can take what you want. You can leave what you don't want. You can say what you'd like to say, but just know that the information is free, so you're going to get what you pay for. So with that being said, I'll toss it over to Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, I know that you have been doing quite a bit of exploratory things of all avenues of your business. Do you want to share a few things of what you've been doing or what's really front of mind for you this quarter as you go into 2025?
I'm laughing because yes, I have been doing quite a lot of things. And I called Paco the other day, excuse me, maybe a week, no, was that earlier this week or late last week? I called Paco, and before he said hello, he said, "No, I haven't heard of that," because I'm messing around with stuff, trying to figure out next steps for next quarter. And so I'll call Paco, "Hey, you know about this? You know about that? Have you tried it?" And so he answered the phone. No, I haven't heard of that. No clue what I'm talking about. And I actually called him for something else, but it was funny. But it rolls right into what we're doing. You know what I'm doing, what we're doing here, trying to get things in line. So, you know, as we talked about before, I use the fourth quarter to try to plan for the following year. And one of the things we do is we spend our whole year really evaluating products, right? Evaluating the tools we use, evaluating the strategies we use, what works, what doesn't work, what we can improve upon, and and what we need to get rid of. So, again, every year I have the same issue where, okay, here's where we're efficient, here's where we weren't. How can we fix that, right? Is it the tool? Is it our process? Is it our people? Whatever the case may be, that's the evaluation point. So for me this year, excuse me, it's been taking medicine for my cough. But no, for me this year has really been working on the efficiency part of this, right? Where can we improve in our time to ticket completion, our time to ticket, commencement, um, how we how we solve problems. Like if we can get to a ticket that comes in or an issue that comes in in 10 minutes, right? How long does it take us to solve that problem? And in that time, what are the steps we're taking to do it, right? So one of the things we realizing, and I've talked about this before, processes, procedures needed to be more centralized, more easy to find, more laid out. And then we've incorporated that along with checklists now. So everything, when you go through it, this is a checklist, right? Go through these things. We take for granted a lot as MSPs, as professional techs who do this, 1,000 times. We just do it, right? We're on autopilot a lot of times. And then sometimes we forget certain things. And then when we miss those steps, we're killing ourselves trying to figure out, hey, what's wrong? When something doesn't work, we spend 2 or 3 times as much time now trying to figure out, that one little step. We forgot to put a period in a script or whatever it may be. And so I wanted to get it so granular, get it buttoned down so granular that, you do these, you still, you do them, but you do it right from that checklist. You check that box, you go to the next one, check it. And it may seem a little tedious, but then in the end, it cuts down on the mistakes that we make, right? On the just very human mistakes that we can make, not necessarily being careless or anything else, just human mistakes. Sometimes we forget certain things. So we've been using Hoodoo for that. And a lot of that is too, one of the great things about Hoodoo is when we create these documents, we can make them what's the word? Copyable, right? So if I just need to copy something and drop it wherever I'm working, I can just do that. And so that's been a big deal for us. So that has been the focus all year, was to button that down. I think we've gotten to a point now where I'm extremely confident about going into next year with that. And then some other things, and we can talk about as time permits. I don't want to use up all the time here, but we have made some changes to our stack. As Paco alluded to, Activa has been, was a hidden gem that I didn't know about, that Corey brought to Paco's attention and Paco brought to my attention. And there's a couple other things I'm using now, and we've been also able to cut out some things that we basically were, paying for, that was either not being used, or it was doing double duty. It was something else that we could adapt to doing the same thing. So in the end, it's basically been, time-saving methods and cost-saving methods to help us improve our efficiency. So I'll leave it there.
Sounds good. Yeah, you got to love the what I call the holy trinity of sales. It's every business, including ours, cares about three things and three things only, and that's going to be increasing your revenue, reducing your costs, or expanding your market share. If you don't hit any of those 3 points, the business just does not care. But I was going to go ahead and toss it over to Corey and see, Corey, this is the first time, obviously, you're discussing inside of fourth quarter living. How do you treat your fourth quarter for the business? Is that a strategic time for you? Is that a time that allows you to just really double down on what you've already had previously planned? How do you treat the last quarter of the year for your business?
Well, man, besides this alarm going off, I'm gonna have to kick it back to you for the second, and
No
then I'll
worries.
let you answer, man. Then I'll come back in and hit me up.
No, sounds good. So,
All right.
I think for us, what we try to do here is a lot of what Rick mentioned, right? And for us, what we're doing is we're actually making the strategic decision is if it doesn't live inside of super ops, it's not going to work out for us. And so we're doing a lot of our integrations, a lot of our work, a lot of our stuff. And so our, documentation, all the avenues that we used for third-party systems have now just integrated inside of the system. And that's for a couple of things. One, ease of use for multiple teams, because now it's not just us. We have an outsourced help desk now. We have external members that are working on our CRM that then integrates inside of as a new client goes into super ops. And it's now making us change or modify certain things and tools that we use. I think I've mentioned this in the past before. We are going to slowly move away from the Arachnus network line. It's just there's multiple reasons why. But it's just time. It's been a stack that we've used, a networking stack that we've used for many, many years. Ease of use. But it's time to move on to something that's going to allow us to not only integrate, but also allow us to move forward in a fashion that's going to be ease of use, easy to deploy, and works into the ecosystem of using super apps as that cog. As we used to treat when we were with Synchro, anything that integrated inside of Synchro was what we wanted from there. It's the same premise of what we're going to do with super ops, with a lot of the more tools and the integrated marketplace and things of that nature that they're going to have moving forward. So, I think for us being able to do that has allowed us to make a lot of easier decisions. So, with the moving of network stack, now we're using the network monitoring inside of the system. We've been chasing an integration with a backup partner. And we have several backup providers that we're using right now. And that's unfortunate because there's just certain things that we have as a standard that not all platforms do. And so the one big key that we're missing is the integration inside of super ops. So we're working on that process. The other thing that we're really working on and really driving and trying to move forward with is being able to not only for that system, but also for the tools that we use, and pushing some of these partners that don't have set integration with maybe just not that PSA or any PSA, moving in inside of the system as well. So really diving down on systems, really diving down on SOPs, and then really just working on collaboration and communication. Working with helpdesk.tech has really allowed me to understand a better use for Microsoft Teams. And now we're diving into a lot of our integrations inside of that. Our phone systems by BVoIP is integrated inside of Teams. We have shared collaborative team channels between our remote help desk, our on-site technicians. Now there's no, okay, let me call from my cell phone. Let me shoot a text message. They're having to figure out what's going on in this job. One person said something and dispatch didn't disclose, things of that nature. So now we have this ability where we're now centralizing our communications inside of Teams, and that's been working out really well for us on just trying to be on the same page for everybody. And then ultimately, our last piece of it all is really just on the systems a systems capability is, how are we going to plan to continue to do business? And so, Rick mentioned this for his business. We are going to be raising our rates because as we looked at our stack, we've realized that I thought it only had been 2-3 years since we raised our rates. Apparently it turned out to be 4 to 5. So I'm very overdue. So with the help of Manger, with the agreements and being able to put all that stuff into place, it allows us to not have to worry about that. We can just make those adjustments as they need moving forward. But the big piece of it is we needed a processor that's going to allow us to really work forward on how we do business. So we did partner with a processor that we're going to use right now. Not disclosing as of yet. I don't know if I said it or not on the previous show, but not going to disclose it just yet, just because I want to make sure we work out the key. You know how I am. I don't like advertising things unless I vetted it, unless I'm thinking they're good and things of that nature. That's just as me as a steward for all of you, because it's not fair for my own biased opinions to sway your decisions. So, and so we're working through that, because the idea here is we're going to start offering financing for a lot, especially when it comes to the new year, for all the hardware equipment that's going to be done. So now we're going to be really tightening down on our agreements, where our per user pricing is for support. Anything project related will now be its own separate line item. And that's a discussion for moving forward that they have to open up budget for. So what does that mean? Meaning that, if it's a office move and things of that nature, that's all kind of uh, um, well known, or that's kind of a give me for that. But now, like if we're prepping workstations, there's going to be a professional service line in there for the amount of time it takes to work on that. How long does it take to do certain modifications or SharePoint projects that you're setting up sites and doing these migrations. You're not treating them like an email migration. You're lumping them all together. So we're starting to treat our projects specifically in our professional services, so that when we have the financing option available, it's easier for our clients, and B, allows us to ensure that we're not leaving money on the table. It's funny, it's super random, but I was listening to I forgot what talk it was, but Rick Ross, who famous rapper, he was mentioning on how, in the business of Ricky Rose, as he says, if you charge $3 for something and someone comes to you and only has two, normally the standard is, hey, this is my price, and if you can't pay it, you got to go forward. His thing is like, well, I don't want to lose those $2, so I'm going to take those $2, but how do I figure out to get that other dollar down the line? Or how do I go ahead and get it from some other type of offering or service or something that I normally wouldn't do, but to make sure that you maintain to get back that $3, right? So small example, probably doesn't even make too much sense for how I said it, but the point of it all is to say, as you reevaluate your stack and you reevaluate your offerings, ensure that you're not giving yourself the short stick and you're leaving that money on the table. I don't know if there's any feedback that you have, gentlemen, on that. So,
Man, I love it. I think you hit it right on the head, man. Definitely right on the head. And and as you lead into where I'm headed, is kind of the same way. What you're looking at here is the opportunity to continue to get better and to continue to go, right. We're all in this to make a profit and to do something. And if we're not covering our costs and the things, and our margins start to go down, then we don't have anything. And what you're looking at is, and I listened to what Rick said and what you said, is what you're putting in here is a thing that I think MSPs miss, and it's that process of procedures and how you run your business. If you ever decide to sell it or whatever it is, that's called goodwill, and that means that you have a solid process to make things work efficiently. Which means, therefore, in the end, by me leveraging those processes, it will definitely net a higher return than not having those processes, right? And going down that path. That's why it's extremely important to do that. The other thing I would just throw out there as an example, because we do very similar, is if you were able to document that and show that in a diagram, what you're showing your customers is how you are repeatable, how you ensure you have a methodology of how you ensure that everybody in your organization is doing the same thing at the same time. And that's key, because now what that means is that you can show them, here's how Renactus does it, here's how Prodigy does it, and everybody in Prodigy does it that way. Make sure that your next MSP, who you're also evaluating, can show you how they do it to ensure that you're getting the same product each and every time, right? Huge marketing effort to go out there that most people miss, is make sure that what you're doing aligns on that marketing effort, because that's truly your unique selling proposition. That's how you differentiate yourself from everybody else, right? That's powerful stuff. And also, man, I think at the end of the day, it shows your commitment to your employees, that you're at a place and where it comes from. And Paco, you said something I thought was awesome. I did this a few years ago. Is that I decided that when we come in, we do everything as a service. Everything that we come in, we try to offer it as a service. Firewall as a service, voice over IP as a service. Anything we do, we might do the project, but we want to manage it and maintain it over time. And when we do a firewall of a service or a network as a service, that means we bring in the hardware and we own it. You're leasing it from us, so therefore we take care of it and where it comes from all out. And what we did, what was really key is it allowed us when we go pick up a customer that we could rip and replace, because now all of our customers across all 50 plus of them, they have the exact same firewall, the exact same network infrastructure. They run the exact same Office 365, the exact same backup, the exact same anything. And so what's really cool about that is my employees now, I can really say that we are experts in the technology that we support. Therefore, we know that no matter who calls us, each and every one of them can work on it. So they're not trying to figure out, is this an Arachnus? Is this a Cisco? Is it Sonic Wall? Is it WatchGuard? Is it Sophos or is it Meraki? Is it Juniper? Is it Cisco? They know exactly what they're doing, which now allows us to be truly experts in that situation, because now we really have a cookie cutter approach. Now that's hard for you as the owner, because it's a huge lift from a sale. That shows a commitment that paid off big time for us on the back end by doing the things that you guys are working on and what we've done as well. So right down the same path. I love it. That's big stuff.
Yeah, it's important to know too, especially like how you mentioned is where, if it's gonna make your job easier, it's gonna make the client's life
Mm-hmm.
easier. And I don't
Oh,
think they
100%.
understand that, right? Like there's
Mm-hmm.
this concept of, there's still that little bit of stigma where they say, well, you're just trying to upsell me something that I don't need. And that's the conversation from the beginning is like, look, if I ever suggest something to you, it's because you absolutely need it. My
100%.
job for you is how do I make your cost as efficient as possible with your
Yeah.
investment in us. So if I can help save you money because you're doing things inefficiently, that's my job to
Mm-hmm.
try and take care of. But if I'm telling you to swap out a switch because you've had already 3 internet outages because every time we reboot this thing, it doesn't work, how much productivity are you losing till you wait till somebody to get to you? And you
Yeah.
can't even do anything about it, right? And so of course, when it comes to when something or a situation happens, that's when they're most susceptible to doing what you want to do. But it
Yeah.
just key points to a lot of that, as you mentioned, is that as a service allows you to maintain a lot of that control, but also
Yes.
it's the quote unquote included. So, like right
Mm-hmm.
now, when I sign up a client, I've already worked in where that firewall as a service, UTM as a service,
Yep.
like, hey, look, I don't support what that has, but it's included in your price, so I'm swapping it out. Like, there's no
Yep.
conversation. It's this is what we're doing, right? And
Love it.
so there's the least resistance on it because I just closed a client about 2 months ago or a month and a half ago where they had a Sonic wall in there. They're like, oh yeah, it's great and whatever. But when we really dive into it and say, well, how long ago did you put this firewall in? Oh, well, they gave it to us about 10 years ago. And so this what, they had configured whatever and they plugged it in and they've been managing it ever since. Well, I could tell you right now, they have not been managing it because this is
Nope.
likely end of life. So we got to get that out as soon as possible. So it's things like
Yeah.
that. It's this concept of if I have to spend more than what I've already budgeted for, it's that psychology of they just can't seem to get over it. So being able to say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, it's included, works out in your favor a lot more rather than that. And then again, after X amount of months, the hardware is paid off for itself. You're managing it, especially if it's a subscription, you have your little margin on there. If it turns out that it was a bad relationship and you want nothing to do with it, hardware has been paid for, you can walk away cleanly versus you having
Yep.
to just worry about it or even try and selling them the hardware network that they're trying to save for or trying to figure out
Mm-hmm.
how to budget.
And one of
And
the
you know
things
what's
too, when you get that,
yeah.
oh, I'm sorry. No, I was just
No,
saying
go
when you
ahead.
get
Go ahead,
that
Rick.
pushback about buying new things or replacing, the conversation again, it needs to go back to time, right? Your job, my job for you, Mr. Customer, is to limit your downtime, right? When you have an issue,
Yep.
you need me to fix it as fast as possible so that you and your employees continue working, servicing your customers and making money for your business. If I have to take 5 hours to figure out how to fix something or solve an issue for a product we don't support, I'm going to charge you that first of all. But what would you rather me do? Take 5 hours to figure out how to fix it, or take 5 minutes to know how to fix
Mm-hmm.
our product and
Right.
get you back up and running? So that's
Right.
the trade-off that we have to always emphasize to them too, is because when you standardize, it's not only is for us, yes, because it makes it more efficient for us to work on it, but it's for you as well, Mr. Customer, because now when you have an issue, there's a highly likely chance we've seen this before. So we know exactly where to go to solve the problem, how to fix it, and get you back working, servicing your customers, doing your business, whatever that may be during the day, rather than me telling you, okay, excuse me, we have to figure out, we have to read the manual to figure out what's wrong, to then call somebody somewhere else to figure it out. So that's really the conversation. It's really about the time and efficiency of what happens, because, in the end, and I'm learning this more and more as I learn to stop being as generous with it. Time is money. And,
No doubt.
my time is money and your time is money. So
no doubt.
No,
And that's it, man.
I agree.
We're in the business of selling uptime, right? Just be real about it, right? We sell that uptime and it's valuable. And so you got to make sure that they understand that value from that perspective, for sure.
And I think that's very important that you just said, Corey. We sell uptime. We don't sell time. That's a very big difference that a lot of people don't understand, is that selling widgets for time or trading time for service is never going to a never ending goal that you won't be able to scale from. What you really need to do is, again, sell on an idea or a principle or this type of service. And that's how you scale. Because when you trade time and materials, it's going to be hard, because when you get to a point where you have so much work and you're trying to get the help, you're kind of stuck in this weird position that you can't really get out of. And so that's a very big important piece to do that as well. Only other thing that I'll mention, and then we'll kind of round out the show here, is that exactly what Rick mentioned, and I'll put a little caveat to that of what he said, is that you don't have the time to research other things that you're just not familiar with. However, it's also great to establish a relationship, a network that may be familiar with something if you're in a pinch and you need something to go to move forward with a project. So I think Rick already knows where I'm going with this. And so we had a project that was came through for a fertility clinic, and they wanted to use their Ubiquity equipment, but they couldn't figure it out and things of that nature. And they approached us to help. So they wanted us to swap out some other gear, but as everyone knows, I have no desire to work with Ubiquity. I have no desire to learn how the process works. I know everyone says that. I know it's solid equipment. I know it's solid gear. I don't have the time to learn all that. I prefer plugging in something and managing and all that. But I know that my good friend Rick Smith has been messing with Ubiquity for quite a many years. And so I know that he'll be able to help me out in these type of situations. So this is where I've said, hey, we don't manage that, but I do have a colleague that runs another MSP that he can help take on that project for us. And so reached out to him. He helped out the client figure out what it is. I was able to maintain that project. He was able to go ahead and help me with that. We both worked out in the end, and everyone was happy, right? And so it comes to the point where, yes, sometimes you may have to turn jobs away, but also if you can establish a network for yourself and you have confidence and colleagues that you trust can help you further along and close that deal. Again, goes back to that not leaving money on the table. Helps out not only myself but also helps all those around as well. So little note to add there from there. But all right, gents, I think we're at a good point here in the episode. Again, for those listening, this is just the first episode of this said series. Obviously it's one of our more important series that we do. This may be a thing that goes on where we may do seasons of podcast episodes versus it being ever longing. We'll find out. We got some stuff we got coming up here in 2025. But before we go ahead and round out the show, Corey, anything you wanted to add on as lasting words before we tie it all up into a nice little bow?
Yeah, I think one of the main things is that it's being a CEO and being owner of MSP. I think everybody on this podcast it's lonely at the top, right? And sometimes you you forget about taking time for yourself or reaching out to others out there, right? And what I've learned for being in the MSP business now for almost 16 years is if you get into the community and having partnerships like this, man, it's almost like church. You either just going into it, just coming out of it, about to go into it, or you stuck, right? And if you don't have your community around you, you'll never get past one stage and the other, but you'll never know that somebody else is going through it. Like I listen here and I see Paco was saying some stuff that I went through last time, and here's what it was. Rick's going through it, coming out of it. But we don't have these relationships and be able to build these things up from that perspective. you always believe like I'm the only one, and that's a bad place for you as an owner or an MSP to be. I've been there. I'm sure you guys have been there, and that's why I love the community and having an opportunity like this is to not be there. So leverage your community. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. There's so much business out there. I live in Dallas. There's an MSP on every corner that that's out there, but we don't. We coordinate together. We work together. We don't run into each other, but we make sure. I live by a model that when one MSP coughs, we all catch the cold, right?
Mm,
And so we want to make sure that we're taking care of each other in the business for sure.
I love that. Love that. Mr. Smith, any lasting words before we tie it off? Before you cough to death?
Yeah, well, I think the one thing I want to leave with Paco and I both mentioned this in different parts of this conversation is about raising the prices, right? As Paco said, he evaluated, thought he did it a couple of years ago, realized it hasn't been done in a while. I'm just going to give this piece of advice to everyone, and myself included, because I've been a victim of this as well. Raise your prices. Your vendors are raising their prices. Your costs are going up somewhere with your employees, with expenses. Your prices are going up. You shouldn't absorb these costs. Your customers are raising their prices because they're experiencing the same situation. So raise your prices. As this episode airs, I believe it's going to be the last Tuesday in November. So it's a good time if you're in yearly contracts. Get a letter out if you choose to do it that way. Get a letter out to your clients, letting them know, hey, it's 60 days out now. Come January 1st, your price is going to go up. Whether you want to give a percentage or give a specific number, that's totally up to you. And I know that there are a lot of us out here who just have it in their contract, so they just raise it and they don't send any kind of notification. And if that's the way you want to do it that way as well. But the bottom line is, raise your price, cover your cost. Again, we always talk about, and Corey alluded to this earlier, and I say this all the time. We focus so much on being an MSP, you forget about the fact that you run an MSP business, right? So you got to take care of the business part as well. And the business is in for profit, so, and you have to cover your costs. So I'll leave it with that. If you haven't done it, do it. If you feel you need to send a letter, send a letter. It's a good time to do it now. It'll give them 60 days for you to have that hee-haw conversation about what and why it's going up. And if you don't send a letter, just on January 1st or whenever you send out your January invoices, make sure that price is up at some percentage of a point that makes sense to you.
Yep. No, yeah, I'll leave it with 3 points, like you said, and we're going to sign off. Exactly what you said, Rick. I would challenge everyone to take a look at what you're paying for as your costs. There's probably a high possibility you're paying for something double because something does the same thing as another tool that you have. And are you paying for that other tool just because it looks prettier? Or do you just need the fundamentals? And do you care? And do your clients care about that prettiness that other tool that you're paying for? Consolidate if you can. Save yourself a little bit of money. Reduce your costs. Second, this was a question that came up in the MSP Unplugged group about how to deal with nonprofits. Do you provide discounts or do you just charge them full price? My suggestion for all of you is charge the full price, but whatever you would give that as the discount, provide them as a donation at the end of the year so that you can get that write-off. That's been a strategy that we have had for those that are trying to help out a neighboring nonprofit. We used to provide like a 15%, 20% discount for nonprofits. Now it's full price. And then whatever that would have been that discount, we provide that as a donation at the end of the year so that we both can benefit from that as well. And then most importantly, as you're looking at raising your costs, you don't want to shock your clients. And I know I may be nervous, but again, this is going to come out probably the last Tuesday of October. Schedule it for November 1st. Send out a letter. Hey, in 60 days, we're going to be raising your rates by X amount. Yeah, it's going to be scary. Yeah, some are going to get into your face, or they may have a bit of a question about it. But I'll tell you what, if they love your services, they're going to stay. And for those that leave, there's costs to support that client. So you're reducing your cost. So you're kind of saving a little bit also as well in there. So keep that in mind as, one takes care of the other. And hopefully that'll help you get into 2025 a little bit stronger, faster, and better. So with that, this will round out this episode of MSP Unplugged. And we appreciate all of you listening and watching us today. If you like what you hear, go ahead over to YouTube, subscribe, hit that notification button, and you'll be notified whenever a new episode is about. Also, if you don't have the chance to watch us, but you like to take us on the go, we're on most of the audio podcatchers. We're on Amazon Music, Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts. As Rick likes to say, he only has a face for radio, but I don't know what that means. But feel free to go ahead and subscribe, and then we'll drop into those audio podcatchers as they were. And again, really appreciate you all listening here, and we will see you next time on MSP Unplugged.